Peace in the Middle East, a deal to end the war in Gaza, has been reached. President Trump announced the first phase of a peace deal that includes a ceasefire and the release of the remaining hostages in Hamas's custody. Plus, burn notice. Authorities say they've nabbed the man responsible for igniting one of the massive and deadly Los Angeles wildfires earlier this year. His story is, as you might expect, nuts. And just as dangerous as MS-13, Homeland Security Secretary Noem's dire warning about left-wing groups like Antifa. Those stories and more today, Thursday, October 9th. I'm Caitlin Becker, and this is the New York Postcast. President Trump announced Wednesday that Israel and Hamas have signed off on a peace plan, almost 2 years to the day after the October 7th attacks. The two sides agreed to the first phase, including a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of all remaining hostages. In addition to that incredible news, the president's post also said, quote, Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps toward a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. A U.S. official told Axios that the hostages will be released 72 hours after the Israeli cabinet approves the plan. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly said the deal was a, quote, great day for Israel, adding his cabinet would meet today to approve it. Hamas also released a statement thanking President Trump and called on all parties to hold Israel to their end of the bargain. Now, it's believed that 20 of the remaining 48 hostages taken that day are still alive. The president hinted that a deal was imminent earlier on Wednesday after he abruptly left a roundtable on Antifa.
Yeah, I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we're very close to a deal in the Middle East, and they're going to need me pretty quickly.
Antifa is just as sophisticated as MS-13. That's part of Homeland Security Secretary Noem's contribution to a roundtable discussion on left-wing violence held by President Trump on Wednesday.
The epidemic of left-wing violence and Antifa-inspired terror has been escalating for nearly a decade. At universities, Antifa has organized riotous mobs to attack campus speakers. I see it all the time. And these are agitators, anarchists, and they're paid.
Noem took part in the roundtable, having just returned from seeing unrest in Portland, Oregon firsthand, observing anti-ICE protesters, including one in a chicken costume.
This network of Antifa is just as sophisticated as MS-13, as TDA, as ISIS, as Hezbollah, as Hamas, as all of them. They are just as dangerous.
The president repeatedly promised to track down those who fund violent left-wing groups and even suggested, in concert with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and White House aide Stephen Miller, that the administration might put Antifa on its list of foreign terrorist organizations. Such a designation would increase the ability of the government to freeze assets and would make it a crime to provide support to such groups. A 29-year-old Uber driver obsessed with dystopian imagery and French rap has been charged with maliciously starting that fatal blaze that decimated parts of Los Angeles, according to authorities. It was the most destructive fire in LA history. 12 people lost their lives and 6,000 homes were destroyed. All told, about $150 billion in damages. Jonathan Rinderknecht ignited the initial sparks just after midnight on New Year's Day after dropping off some Uber passengers. Those passengers recalled he appeared, quote, agitated and angry. Now, he allegedly sparked the blaze on a hiking path, watched it burn for about a minute, and then ran away. He then reported it to 911 and was apparently filming all of this on his phone. While on the phone with dispatchers, authorities say he typed a damning question into ChatGPT, quote, are you at fault if a fire is lit because of your cigarettes? And the screen record caught it. Now, initially, Rinderknecht drove away, but then turned around to follow fire trucks responding to the scene and watched and recorded several videos of crews fighting the blaze. And months before the wildfires tore through Southern California, the suspect also asked ChatGPT to create artwork that, in light of what he stands accused of, is really troubling. A depiction of a burning forest next to a bustling city. And he specifically asked for a crowd running away from the flames to be included in those images. Rinderknecht, who was arrested in Florida this week, has no criminal history and is being transferred back to California to stand trial. The war of words between President Trump and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is heating up as hundreds of National Guard troops arrive in the Chicago area. Now, as I've talked about many times before, Pritzker wants nothing to do with the president's federal crime crackdown, and the administration firmly believes that federalized troops are the only way to bring order to chaos as they round up suspected illegal migrants. Pritzker blasted the president in an interview with the Chicago Tribune and claimed without evidence, quote, "This is a man who's suffering dementia." The president fired back, posting about both Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson, writing, quote, "Chicago mayor should be in jail for failing to protect ICE officers. Governor Pritzker also." The whole back and forth accompanies legal challenges as the Illinois governor and Chicago mayor, both Democrats, filed a lawsuit to try and block the White House from getting those National Guard troops into Chicago. But as is so often the case, the rhetoric may be obscuring the solution to the problem and the politics of actually governing a city, state, or country. Now, to dig into all of that, I'm joined now by the Post's Washington bureau chief, Josh Christensen. Josh, I need to ask you, one of the arguments the administration has been making is that if Chicago just let federal agents do their job, the National Guard wouldn't be needed. Is that what's happening here? The president has wanted troops there for a while now.
Yeah, we're seeing a similar process play out here that we've seen play out in several other cities so far, but it seems like the only one that's acquiesced is the one that already had a degree of federal control, and that's in Washington, D.C. The Chicago situation is very similar to Los Angeles. You're seeing local and state Democratic officials fiercely opposed in Illinois and Chicago to this, the same way they were in Los Angeles and Governor Gavin Newsom was in California. They're using all legal means at their disposal to try to stop this. And this is mainly a play to each of the parties' respective political bases over a real hot button issue and the president's immigration agenda right now.
You touched on something there that I want to ask you about, the bases that they're kind of playing to. And to get there, let's talk about the war of words. I mean, shooting barbs at his opponents is President Trump's specialty. Love him or hate him, he's really good at it. But then you have the Governor Pritzker jumping in on the name calling. So are we ever going to get some actual solutions here? Or are they, like you said, just stoking their respective voting bases? I mean, it always feels like to me that voters' frustrations oftentimes boil down to whether or not legislators are getting things done.
You certainly have seen Pritzker wade into the name calling here, as Governor Newsom has done in recent weeks. Although I suppose Pritzker upped the ante by suggesting that the president has dementia. Certainly not the first Democrat who's accused the president of having impaired cognitive faculties, and won't be the last. But you can see that the attacks have been ratcheted up in kind of response to what they see as an unlawful assertion of federal control in Illinois, in Chicago. And Trump, of course, is never going to back down from a fight like that.
Now, speaking of getting things done and whether or not that's happening, the president ran on this issue. He really ran on, as he said, deporting illegals, reducing crime, and it's broadly popular with Americans. So he really does want to get this done. But politically, are there risks in how he gets it done?
There are, and we've already seen them in several of the polls that have come out since he got into office. We saw some of the first polls around the 100-day mark showing a decline in support for his immigration agenda, at least a noticeable one, but not one in which he's still losing the issue to the Democratic Party. He's still winning that issue over the Democratic Party. But the way in which they conduct these criminal migrant deportations that they've been doing with DHS and ICE and that sort of thing is very critical to the midterms next year. And it's also even critical for some of these state level races in terms of how the parties are being viewed. So the president's aware of that. The White House is aware of that. And their messaging has been very targeted, that everyone that they are seeking to deport has committed some sort of crime. And if not, illegally entered the U.S., then some other kind of major crime, violent crime. And that's been going hand in glove with a lot of the messaging that's been coming out from the various executive branch agencies.
And we know those immigration numbers are up. It was a Post exclusive, and we talked about it on the podcast yesterday. So Josh Christensen, right in front of the Capitol, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
The state of Kentucky is suing the makers of the wildly popular tween gaming platform Roblox, claiming that it's fostered a, quote, playground for pedophiles to meet potential victims and for exposing children to inappropriate material. The state's attorney general says the company, which has 111 million monthly active users, does not have the guardrails it needs to protect kids. 2/3 of all 9 through 12-year-olds in the U.S. use it. Now, one particularly egregious example outlined in the court filing is the recent influx of Charlie Kirk assassination simulators. The suit claims that these were accessible to children as young as 5. And this is just the latest legal trouble for Roblox. A different lawsuit filed in Iowa earlier this year alleges that a 13-year-old girl was introduced to a predator on the platform before she was kidnapped, trafficked across multiple states, and sexually assaulted. And the state of Louisiana also filed a lawsuit similar to that one in Kentucky. Now, Roblox fired back to the Bluegrass State suit in a statement that reads in part, quote, "We have rigorous safety measures in place, from advanced AI models to an expertly trained team of thousands moderating our platform 24/7 for inappropriate content." And finally today, stop me if you heard this one before. A priest and a nun walk into a church and marry one another. Well, that's actually a new one. Apparently, they took the whole love thy neighbor thing pretty literally. Here's what happened. Laís, a Brazilian nun living in a convent, fell ill with depression, and she returned home to focus on her recovery. That's when Jackson, a priest in training from a nearby seminary who she knew but never spoke to, sent her a message that he was praying for her. The two became friends, and before you know it, Jackson leaves the seminary. That is when they begin dating, and Laís parlays this into social media fame, sharing her unique life with an online following. I guess you could say she ditched her habit for a hashtag? No? Anyway, the couple tied the knot in secret this past March and just went Instagram official this week with the news. Bless. I suppose what people do behind closed doors is none ya business. There are so many bad puns for this story, it should be a sin. Okay, I swear that is the last one. I am done. Promise no more nun puns tomorrow either. And to make sure you don't miss the episode and the lack of nun puns, like and follow the New York Postcast wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. We are almost through the end of the week, friends. I'll see you tomorrow.